Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play Aquatica. So in Aquatica, we are Ocean Kings, and our realm has basically run out of resources. And so the object of this game is to explore the ocean depths, looking for new locations with new resources. So in this game, you're going to want to get prosperity points in order to win the game. And in this game, there's only two ways you can get prosperity points, okay? One of the ways that you will acquire prosperity points is being able to complete these goals. The game comes with 4 goals, okay? Let's see if I can zoom in. Hold on. Zoom in. Just to give you an idea. Well, we'll talk about the goals in a moment, but just to show you the goals a little bit better. So these are the 4 goals, okay? This one, this one, this one, and this one. So one of the ways to get victory points or prosperity points is to complete a goal, okay? That's also how you're going to end the game. That's one of the 3 ways this game will end. When you place one of your mantas, okay, on this location, and you have put out all 4 of your mantas, meaning you completed all 4 of these goals, that ends the game. But that just triggers the end of the game. You still get 1 more turn, and so does everybody else. So even though you're the one that triggered the game, you'll still get 1 more turn anyways. But yes, that is one of the 3 ways that you'll trigger the end of the game, and that's one of the ways you're going to get victory points in this game. Now over here we have locations. This is the second way that you can get victory points. Like this one here is worth 7 victory points, for instance. Well, this one is only worth 1 victory point, okay? Now you don't just simply get a location and you automatically get the victory points. So we'll get to how you would obtain those victory points. But that's the 2 ways you're going to score victory points, with locations and with goals, okay? So that's how that's going to work. So let's zoom back out here. Okay. There we go. All right. So another one of the 2 ways that the game is going to end is we have basically a character deck of cards here. So if this runs out, if this empties out completely, now I only have it set up for solo, but there's going to be more of these cards. But if this deck ever empties, that can trigger the end of the game if the character deck is emptied, okay? And then the 3rd way that the game can technically end is if you empty out all of the location cards as well. So this is the location card deck. If this ever gets emptied, then that's the 3rd way that the game will be triggered to end, okay? So we talked about basically the way the game is going to end and scoring wise. But let's talk about how the game functions, the flow of the game. Well, every player will get 1 main action per turn, and then they're allowed to do as many optional actions as they want before their main action, or between their main action, or even after their main action. So while they have a main action that they must do, they have these optional actions that they can do before or after and in between. So every player is going to start with the same types of character cards. Every player will have the Blue Waters Agent, the Sea Lord, the Legionnaire, the Matrona, which will probably be the last card you ever play, the Seahorse, and the Wave Teller. And then, of course, Matrona, she'll be most likely the last one you play, most likely. So on your turn, playing one of these character cards is the main action, okay? So let's explain some of the main actions, all right? So first of all, we have Blue Waters Agent, okay? The Blue Waters Agent allows you to recruit 1 new character. So 1 character from this face-up display, and you'll notice, if I can move the board here a bit without messing stuff up, you'll notice this one costs 0 coins. Whenever you recruit a character, you can't just simply recruit a character. You have to pay money to recruit it. But the first one is always free. So you'll always have one accessible that's free to pay for, free to get with Blue Water's agent. So I could play this as my main action and basically just get this character card, the Sneaky Eel. And since I'm purchasing him, he'll go into my hand, meaning that on my next turn, I could very well use the Sneaky Eel as my next action, my main action for the round. So that's something I can do. So recruiting more characters is something you're going to be doing. That's one of the ways you'll be doing it, is using this character to do it. Now, one of the reasons why you want to recruit more characters is going to be because a lot of these characters have a lot of cool effects, and we'll try to go over most of them. But they have a lot of really cool effects that will help you out. But the other reason why you want to hire more characters is because right now you start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 characters. One of the 4 goals that you need to complete in order to trigger the end of the game, or just to simply get prosperity points, is to have 8 different characters in your hand, okay? In your hand. That means they all have to be in your hand. That means whenever you play a character and your turn is done, this character is going to go to your player board, basically. Okay, so let me grab the player board. When you're done playing a character, it's going to go in this little slot here on the board, or next to the board anyway. And that means you can't utilize that character for a while until later. And we'll talk about how you can potentially get that character back. But, you know, it's going to sit there for a while. And that means it won't be in your hand anymore. So if you've used a lot of characters and you've already purchased a lot of characters, you still won't be able to meet this goal here, which I showed you earlier in the video, because you have to have 8 characters in your hand. There's a hand icon up there. Can I? No, it's just too far away. But I showed them all pretty good in the beginning of the video. So there's a hand, and then there's this icon that looks like a character with a trident in their hand, meaning your hand, 8 characters in your hand. And once you do that, you can complete that goal. However, in order to complete the goal, you have to utilize one of your mantas that you have here, one of your trained mantas, to complete the goal. And this is an action that you can do in your turn. It's a free action as long as you can, as long as you meet the requirements for said goal. But the problem is, these mantas, they give you abilities that you can utilize, okay? We won't talk about what they all do right this second, okay? But they do a lot of different abilities, and so you might not want to use them right away, even if you have 8 characters or complete another goal, because you might still want to use them for some of their effects, okay? But yes, that's the idea. Now, with that said, there are ways to get more mantas. So you start with 4 trained mantas, but you might be getting some wild mantas at some point. And there's quite a few here, a few different ones you could potentially get. So if you already have basically one wild manta that you got earlier, you might want to use your weaker trained mantas to basically, score your prosperity points and complete said goal. But that's kind of the idea. So you're going to want to do. So you don't want to use all of these, even if you could, right away, unless you already had some wild mantas that you had already acquired. So that's the idea. We'll explain what they all do later. But yes, that's what you're going to do. Okay, so basically we talked about recruiting a character. So Blue Water's agent, he's going to help you recruit a character, okay? So you're going to want more of these for sure. Okay, so that's one of the things you can use your money for. So, for instance, if I was to use the Blue Water's agent, but I wanted this diplomatic crab instead, but I need 1 coin to do that, since he doesn't produce any money, I could flip over one of these mantas. If I flip this manta over, it gives me an additional coin. So if I did that, I'd have a coin, and then I could purchase the diplomatic crab, for instance, or whatever card happens to be here. There are other ways you can get coins, though. So some of the locations you purchase will give you coins that you can utilize later, and we'll explain how these will get utilized later. But you could get something that provides coins for you as you can exploit these, for instance, as like a one-time use. But that's something that you're gonna be able to do as the game goes on. You're gonna have more coins, and then you're gonna be able to purchase the more expensive stuff that you really, really want, for instance. So that's how he works, Blue Water's agent, okay? So now let's talk about the Sea Lord. So the Sea Lord is you can gain 1 coin, and then you can buy a location. Now these locations, they can be acquired 2 different ways. They can be acquired by purchasing them or by conquering them. So let's talk about the purchase, okay? So we got one out already that you could purchase pretty easily. This location here, you'll notice, costs 0 money, meaning you could conquer this for free because it costs nothing. You could purchase this for free because it costs nothing. But this guy only gives me 1 coin, but I could still, for instance, buy this location with the Sea Lord. But with the Sea Lord on its own, I certainly couldn't purchase this location because it costs 5 coins, okay? But maybe I didn't use my manta earlier, and he gives me a coin. Or maybe I conquered a location earlier, and I might have some coins from one of the locations I conquered earlier. So, that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to conquer locations more often than buying locations. But you'll still be wanting to buy locations too. But that's what the Sea Lord does. He can give you a coin, and you can buy a location if you can afford it. And whenever you play a card, you have to be able to do the action, unless you absolutely can't. You have to be able to at least be able to do something with the card. So it depends on what you're doing, but you have to be able to do at least something. You have to be able to. If there's something you can potentially do, you have to do it. So, if I use the Sea Lord here, I can't purchase anything but this card here, okay? But I'd have to purchase it because it's something I can actually pull off by playing this card, okay? I might not want it, but you pretty much have to. Now, you can only have 5 locations at a time. So if you have 5 locations already, that means you can't conquer locations, and you certainly can't buy locations. So if you have 5 locations, you can't do those 2 actions. So then, once again, there's going to be characters you just can't do if you can't do them, because you just can't. So that's how the Sea Lord works. So let's talk about conquering. So the Legionnaire, he's going to give you 3 tridents, and then you get to conquer a location. 3 tridents are basically 3 power. So, but he gives me 3 power, so I could conquer a location that has 3 power. So, for instance, I could conquer this location here because it is 3 tridents, for instance. Each player is also going to get a special manta based on their color. So, green here, they can conquer locations with this icon on the card. So what's a card that has that location? Well, this is the same icon. So this icon here and this icon match. So I could only use this manta for 2 more additional power if I was going to conquer a location with the same icon. But still, that's 8 power, and I've only got 5. So I still wouldn't be able to get it, but that's the general idea, that you're going to want to use it for that. So this icon is actually supposed to be a decayed civilization. That's what that icon is. But every character is going to get a different color, and that means they're going to have a particular type of card, location cards that they could go for better with their trained mantas. That means if you're the red player, you're going to get a trident power with this icon on it, which is known as Shark Bay. So anything that's known as Shark Bay is considered that. So this is known as a Shark Bay location. If you are the orange player, you're going to get the undersea volcano location. So that looks like an undersea volcano, right? And so you can easier get these a little bit easier because you'll get the trident power of 2 tridents with your trained mantas because you have orange and that's orange. And if you're the blue player, you're going to get the shipwreck icon trident on your trained manta, which will make it easier to purchase these cards with the shipwreck icon on it. So those are the 4 different types of locations: shipwreck, underwater volcano, shark bay, and decayed civilizations or cities. Okay? So those are the 4 different locations. So everybody is going to have a slightly different trained manta in that equation that they're best at. Okay? At acquiring, especially in the beginning of the game. But that doesn't mean you'll still have enough power to get this right off the bat. So that's how that's going to work. So but for instance, I could conquer a location. So let's say I conquer a location. Let's say I conquer this location here. Okay, I'm going to put it into my board, and there's 5 slots in the board. Like I said, only 5 locations. So I'm going to go ahead and slide that in. So let me grab the board to show you. Okay. So you grab your location and you just slide it in. And it will go all the way up to the first little icon, circle icon on the card. That's on the side of the card. And then it'll stop. Okay? Now, what this means is I can exploit these 2 tridents for later. So when I conquer a location, I can use these 2 tridents to exploit it to get 2 more power to help me conquer a location, for instance. Okay, so let's set that aside for a moment. Okay, and let's talk about the next card. So we've conquered a location thanks to the Legionnaire. We've talked about Sea Lord and the Blue Water Agent. Then we have the Seahorse. Now, the Seahorse is similar, but he only gives you 1 trident. But you can still conquer a location with the Seahorse. However, you'll notice it has Scout first. Now, one thing to know, before I explain how Scout works, Scout is always an optional action. So when you decide to do this, you don't have to do Scout if you don't want to. Okay? Now, let me explain how Scout is going to work. First of all, what you're going to do is, if there's any cards here, you're going to discard them, putting them here. But there isn't in the beginning of the game, okay? That's the first thing you'll do, though. The second thing you'll do is you'll put these cards that are in this face-up row here. But you'll notice we have 5 locations here, meaning only 4 of these can go here. So, for instance, I can choose which of these cards to discard. So I'm going to discard this one. So I'm going to put it there. And then I can put these locations here. Okay? Now, it's harder to see the icons, but there's these little icons above each of these 4 cards, and they all are exactly the same. They're -1 trident. So now, because this card was here, it now only costs 5 tridents, for instance. This one now only costs 3 tridents, and so on, okay? So -1 for each of those cards, so makes it a little bit easier to conquer one of those locations. But then, that's not all it will do. Then it refreshes all of the locations here. So then you draw all of the cards, filling in all of the spots on your board for these locations as well, okay? So now, as the Scout, as my action, I can conquer one of these locations or one of those locations for a slightly, decrease in cost. But yes, I can do that, for instance. Now, he only gives me 1 trident, okay? And that one's way too expensive. That one's way too expensive. That one's way too expensive. All of these are too expensive because I only have 1 trident, okay? So let's say I have only 1 trident, okay? Oh, there is a manta here that I didn't talk about yet. So one of the other mantas that you'll get is you'll get a manta that gives you +1 power or +1 trident. So I could flip this over, utilizing its effect to give me an additional trident, give me 2 tridents, all right? So let's say I do that. I'm going to flip it over. Now I have 2 tridents. But wait, I still want to get something that's a little bit better than what I have here. So let's go to my player board. So let me move my player board back into the screen. Okay. Okay. All right, so since I only have 2 trident power, I still need 2 more. I still need some more. So you'll notice this icon here that I played earlier, this location that I conquered earlier. I can now exploit this 2 trident power and add it to my power. So I'm going to do that. By doing it, whenever you exploit something, whatever it may be, you're going to move it up, okay? And it's going to stay there. And now I've used it, so now I've got 4 power. Now, whenever you get to a spot that's blank, it cannot be moved up the normal way, okay? Because there has to be another way of moving it up, and it's not going to be by using the exploit ability, okay? It's not going to be used by exploiting an ability. But for instance, then we have, but let's say that I want more power. 4 isn't enough, okay? Well, I've got a manta here, and it has an icon on it as well. You'll notice it has an up arrow on it. So what this does is it allows me to take the elevation action, basically, which allows me to elevate any one spot on my locations up by 1 spot, okay? So, for instance, since there's nothing here, and it wouldn't go up the normal way unless I use this particular type of action, I'm going to cause this to go up 1 more. And now I flip this over because I used it, okay? And now I can add this 2 trident power as well to my seahorse, making it now 6. And now this is here, completely done. So now I have 6 power. I can get something pretty expensive. So for instance, this card here, since it's here, it now only costs exactly 6 power. So now I can actually conquer this because I have 6 power thanks to everything I just did. So I'm going to go ahead and conquer that and add it to my player board because I conquered that location. So that's how conquering is going to work. So the seahorse does it and the legionnaire does it. But there are other cards that can do it too. Other characters that can do it too. But that's the 2 main ways. So that's how that would work. Okay, so now that I've explained most of the characters, now let me explain how the wave teller is going to work. You'll notice it has 2 icons on it. So let me see if I can fix, there we go. It has 2 icons on it. Let's talk about the last one since we just talked about it. You'll notice it has the arrow on it and it has the number 2. That means I can move something up 2 on my player board. I can move up. So for instance, I've got a card here. I could move this up by 2, for instance, okay? That's something I can do with the wave teller. But let's say I have this here like this. I could also do 1 and 2. So you can use the 2 arrows for the same card or for a different one, okay? Or for different ones. But one thing to note is you always must do 2 if you can. If you have nothing, if you only have 1 that you can move up, then that's all you could do. But if you're going to do the wave teller's effect for its second effect, for the O2 arrows, 2 up arrows, or elevation action, you have to move it up. You have to use all of it. So, like I said, I'd have to use it for that, for 2, or I would have to do 1 and 1. I wouldn't be able to just do 1. I'd have to do the full amount. Okay, so that's how that action is going to work. But we already completed this one. So what the wave tower allows me to do is it allows me to score a completed location. Now, I completed this location earlier. So one of the things that it does, this particular one does, since I completed this location, it gives me a wild manta, which has that +1 trident on it as well. So that's cool. So I gain that now. So let me gain that exact manta. Let me find it. And here it is. So I gain this as an additional bonus for completing that card, which I should have done earlier because I completed it earlier. But yes, I get this. Okay, so now that that's done, not all locations are going to have wild mantas on it. This one did, this one doesn't. But what the wave tower allows me to do is it allows me to, with that first icon that looks like a treasure chest, it allows me to score 2 of my completed locations. So what's a completed location? It's a location that can't go any higher. It's already at its max. This one hasn't even started. It would have to be all the way up. But since I can only do one, this is the only one I could do. I could complete it and score it. Meaning, I don't score the points now. At the end of the game, I will get the points for scoring it. And all completed scorecards go in this slot here, where it has that icon on it. Same icon, treasure chest icon, okay? So that's how that's going to work. So it's going to go here, and that means I'm done with it, and I'll get my score of 3 points at the end of the game for completing this location. So that means any locations that are still on your player board here that you weren't able to complete and score, not just simply complete. If you complete this location and it's still on your player board and the game is completely over, that means you do not get these points. So you have to be able to score them after you complete them. So in order to get the points. So you're going to obviously want to try to complete the ones that have the higher points first, if you can, because you're going to want the most prosperity points. So that's how that's going to work. But with the wave tower, like I said, if I had 2 of these done, 2 of these locations done, I could do 2 of them at the same time. That's how that's going to work. Cool. Okay, so I explained how the wave tower works now, and that just leaves one main character I can play. So if I come down to the wire and I no longer have any other characters in my hand, Matrona is the only character I can play as a main action. Okay, so what she does is, let's see, there we go. So the first thing she's going to do is she allows me to take all of my characters from the discard pile and put them into my hand. That's the first thing she's going to do. So I get these guys back to my hand. That's how you're going to get them back, so that way you can use them again and again and again. Okay? And then what she's going to do is you're going to unflip all your mantas. So all of the mantas that I used prior, I'll be able to use again after playing her. So that's cool, right? You'll get to use them again. And then one thing is, whenever you do her, you can't discard her. She will always be in your hand. You can't discard her. You're always going to have her. And if you're playing a 2-player game, you'll discard the leftmost character in the ocean. So then this will you'll lose this card, and then these cards will move down, be a little cheaper, and that will reveal a new character. Cool, right? So that's how that's going to work. But that's only for 2 players, okay? And that's everything she does. That's everything you do as a main action if you take the turn with Matrona. But that's the only way you're going to get these cards back. Well, that's the main way you're going to get these cards back. So I explained the main actions that you could possibly do, okay? So let's talk about some icons on some of these location cards next, okay? So I kind of already explained that you can utilize many different of the icons on these locations at once because you're allowed to. And so there's lots of different things you can do, lots of different combos and stuff. But for instance, we've got some icons that will give you tons more money to use to buy your locations and buy your characters, right? Some of these will give you power, but will only give you power if you're trying to get a certain type of location, and they're going to be different on all of them. Just because this is an undersea volcano doesn't mean that this icon is going to be an undersea volcano if it has it. It just means, that it's possible. Like this one is Shark Bay, but it has a decayed city icon on it and a water city icon on it, but it gives you 3 tridents for each of them. So that's something you can do. You can utilize them. Whenever you exploit an ability, it will cause this to get covered up. So if I use the 3 coins to buy something, I'm exploiting it. That's what it's called. And then it moves up and it gets covered up. And that's how those are going to go up. Okay? That's one of the ways. Let's see here. Let's try to find some other icons. Okay, so like, for instance, we have this icon here. You'll notice this icon is actually the same icon as Matrona, almost. So Matrona here, it is the exact same icon. The only difference is it says all before the icon. This one doesn't have all. So that means that you can exploit this at any time to basically take a card from your discard pile and put it into your hand. That's what that icon means, okay? So that's cool, but only one, because there's only one icon here, and it doesn't say all like it does on Matrona. But that's something you can exploit whenever you need to. But once you exploit it, you know, then it's gone. But if, for instance, you don't have this uncovered here, you can't exploit this until you've either elevated this or exploited this, okay? So in order to get access to this stuff that's below it, you have to, like I said, either exploit the stuff above it or elevate the stuff above it. So that way you can access the stuff that you really want towards the bottom, for instance. So that's how that's going to work. Let's see. Any other? Okay, so here's some other icons. Okay, so this one has the 2 arrow on it. Whenever you exploit a location that has the arrows on it, 1 or 2 or whatever it may be, you can't cause this card to go up by 2 or even 1. So whenever you use a location that has the arrow plus a number, you have to utilize one of your other locations on your player board and cause them to be elevated up. You can't use this card to elevate itself up. But then maybe what you're pushing up on another location has an arrow on it, and then you can use that arrow as a combo to cause this to go up again, for instance. But then you may not want to, because this card here also has this icon on it too. What this means is I can actually, it's the same icon as the wave teller, except I can only do it once, meaning I can score one of my locations that I've completed with it. So that's cool. So that's another way you can score locations you've completed. Some of the locations that you will conquer or buy will give you that ability to do as well. Then you'll notice this one here. It's a yellow, looks like a character, but it's not green, it's yellow instead. And it has a coin on it, but it's got a little red line in between it. That means that you can acquire a location of your choice for free. So that means, you know, assuming there was locations here to conquer or buy, I could just simply acquire one for free. So I could take this one for free, for instance. So that's cool. So that's exploiting that ability. So there's even icons that let you get locations for free, for instance. So that's cool. So that's what that icon means, is I can get a location for free. Cool. And then I exploit it, and then this card would be done. So that's cool. So those are some of the different icons you could come across. There is one I didn't. That isn't there, though. And is it there? No, it's not up there. So let me see if I can find one. There's still one more icon that you could potentially get that's unique. That's on some of these locations. So let me see if I can find it. Nope. They're not there. I guess there's not that many if I'm not finding any. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Okay. So this icon here has the arrow, but you'll notice it has a line on it. It doesn't have a number. Whenever you use this effect, this icon, you cause a card to completely get covered. So let me explain that. Let me get my player board. Okay. Let me say this is the card that I've got a location on. So I've got this location here. I haven't even done anything on it, right? if I have this on my player board, and this is the equation, I can use this arrow with the line on it to cause one of my locations to go straight up. Awesome, right? But because I'm doing that, I don't get any of these effects. They're gone for good. But that does allow me to easily score this for later. So that's cool. And since I'm using that effect and exploiting it, now look, we've got that nice little treasure chest icon right here. So I could use that, exploit that, and complete said card and score it. Cool, right? So that's really cool, I thought. So yeah, that's basically most of the different types of icons you might come across that are on cards. And then there's obviously different characters here. So let's talk about some of them. So the sneaky eel here, he has the scout ability, but then he gives you 2 coins and you can buy a location. So that's pretty simple since I've already explained buying and scouting. So he's another way of doing it. The diplomatic crab, he gives you a coin, but then he gives you the option to recruit a character or buy a location, so you can get another character that you can pay for or afford, or you can buy a location using the diplomatic crab as your main action. Manta's leader here allows you to unflip all mantas. So it gives you another way to unflip all your mantas without using Matrona. And then you gain 1 trident, and you can conquer a location that you can afford to conquer, that you're powerful enough to conquer. So that's cool. Here's that icon I told you about earlier. It was on the turtle the whole time. So with the turtle, the treasurer, you get to move 1 of your locations all the way up. All the way up. Not one level, not 2 levels, but 1 of them all the way up. Just 1 of your cards, though. That's why the 1 is there. So just 1 of your cards gets to go up all the way. Nice, right? And then all players, including you, okay? All players can score 1 of their completed locations. So the card that you just caused to go all the way up, you could score that right off the bat on the same action using Turtle, the treasurer, as your main action. That's cool. So he, like you might have saw, I was pointing to him earlier. So he's really powerful and useful. Researcher here, she gives you 3 of the elevation to move up 3 of your cards, or 1 card up 3 spots. So that's nice, powerful. But then all other players get to do 1 of their choice. So that's cool. So you're helping out your opponents, I guess. The healer here, you can pay 1 coin, assuming you have a coin to spend. You can pay 1 coin, meaning you have to use one of your location coins or one of your mantas that have coins on it, right? To pay the coin. But then you can play any character from your discard pile. So if your discard pile is full of characters, and you play the healer, it's like you get to play 1 of them as if you were actually playing it. So I could use the healer here to, I could pay the 1 coin, use the healer to basically use the legionnaire. Cool. So that's pretty straightforward, I think. So that's cool. So those are those guys. And then we have the grabber. With the grabber, you can conquer a location, and then you can conquer another location. But you'll notice it doesn't give you any of the tridents. So you better hope that the location that you're going to conquer is either free, or both of them are free, because some of them are 0 to start with, and some of them are 1s, and they might be up here, so that could make them actually 0 if they started out as 1 anyway. But you might have some tridents from your cards, your location cards, or you might have some tridents from your mantas that you haven't flipped over yet. So the grabber lets you do 2 locations. So that's cool. That might be useful. Then we have the anglerfish. She's pretty strong. You can conquer 1 location from the discard pile for free. So you see here we have a discard pile. There's only 1 card in it. But if there were multiple cards, you could look through all of the cards in the discard pile, and you could take 1 and conquer it for free. That's what she does. Powerful. So that's the benefit to scouting. To scouting and causing cards to go to the discard pile, you're not only are you, you know, adding more locations for you to conquer, but the player who has the anglerfish, you're helping them out because you're giving them more locations to conquer for free using this action. Or you can cause one of your cards to basically rise all the way to the top, pushing it all the way in on the board, basically, right? So you can do that or do that. So that's still awesome. This is a good card too. And then the Meg. The Meg is going to give you 3 tridents. So that's good. And then you can conquer 1 location. So just like the Legionnaire. But the difference between the Legionnaire and this card is others have to discard 1 character. So this is the only attack card in the game. So if you get this card, all of your opponents have to discard 1 character if you when you play this card. So it's the only attack card in the game. So, and there's only 2 of these technically if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game. So you're not going to get attacked very often, but still that can cause some issues for sure. But still, that's powerful, and that's what that does. And that's all of the different characters that you can potentially get and add to your hand and play and for your main action, you know. And we talked about the locations, I think, pretty good. And I think I explained how you might get these to function pretty well, how you can exploit them for their abilities and get wild mantas when you complete them, and how to score these locations when they are, you know, done. You know, this one's not done, but those are, right? So I think it was a long video for sure, but I think I explained pretty much everything. Oh, wait, let's see here. I didn't explain the goals, so let me explain how you will finish the other goals. So this one, like I said, you need 8 character cards in your hand to complete said goal, and you'll have to put a manta down at these locations. In order to complete this one, your player board has to have 5 locations in the slots. Right now it only has 3, so it's not something I could go for. But when a player has 5 on their turn, they can put one of their mantas down. When they have to put a trained manta, though. They can never put wild mantas on these locations, just their trained mantas, okay? But that's one of the goals that you can score to end the game. Another goal you can score to end the game is to score 3 of your locations. So if I had scored these 3 locations, I had completed them on my player board, and then scored them, I'd have 3 locations scored. And then I could put a manta here for the additional points, which would be 8 points. The second player who goes here, it's 5, and so on and so on. And then for this one, in order to complete this goal here and score it, and I showed all the icons in the beginning of the video, but in order to do this one, you have to have gotten yourself 2 wild mantas. But when you have 2 wild mantas, you can put your manta, your trained manta here for the additional points, and obviously a way to end the game. Okay, I think I explained everything. I think I explained everything pretty good. There's a couple of variants that add keys to the game. I'm not going to explain that because for your first game, you're not supposed to play with them anyway, or for the first few games, for that matter. There's also ways to change the goals up. So that's the basic goals, but there's other goals you can put down instead to make it harder to complete the goals. But still, they don't recommend that for your first game. They recommend you play with the goals that's already on the board. But yeah, that's everything I think you need to know in order to play Aquatica. I hope you guys liked this how to play video. Now that I finally played it, I think this is a keeper for sure. I think I'm going to be keeping this game. I think I really like this one. All right, bye.